Hi all, it's Linda and today we're going to talk about meditation. I did want to do a video on meditation because it is a tool that I've used in my life that I found to be very helpful. I started trying to meditate years ago, probably at this point over a decade ago, and really struggled with it. I had a really hard time because I'm someone who, I like to call myself a little neurotic. I'm someone who ruminates a lot and I'm constantly having thoughts in my head. So it was really hard for me to do what I at the time thought meditation was, which was clear my head of all thought. So I tried a bunch of different things. I went to classes, I read books, I watched videos, and did a lot of things, but nothing really worked for me. And I did try and then stop, and a couple of years later went back and tried again and stopped, etc. And it wasn't until I really chose to do what I do in other areas of my life, really, which is just when something's not working for me, I just kind of take from the information that I've read or seen, I take what I find useful or helpful, and then I just kind of leave the rest of it behind and then kind of figure out my way around it through trial and error, which is really what I did and what actually ended up paying off. So I did want to share some tips and tools, some tips of things I did that I tried that I actually found to be really helpful. I don't want to get too hung up on the theory, but there's a lot of different definitions of meditation and different people think of it in different ways. To me, really, meditation is just a deeper state of consciousness and a deeper state of awareness. And what really is important is that it's actually a very helpful tool. It has a lot of benefits. It can help with your immune system. It improves your focus and concentration. It helps you sleep better. It helps you manage and reduce stress, etc. But for me, one of the biggest benefits of meditation that it's not something that I've seen documented very often is the fact that it really allowed me to get in touch with my own inner guidance, with my own intuition and my own self. So with that, we can So why don't we just get into the meat of this video, which is really me sharing some of the tips and tools that I found, or the things that I found that were really helpful to me. And one of the things the most important thing that I want to start with is that one of the things that I consider to be the key to meditation, or one of the keys to meditation, is the fact that is no judgment. And the reason why I say that is one of the biggest roadblocks that I found along the way when trying to start my meditation practice is that, it wasn't the effects that I was having from meditation, or the way that my meditation looked or felt, was not what I was reading or what I was seeing described elsewhere. So for example, most of us have seen meditation as, someone sitting cross-legs with their hands in a particular position and their eyes closed and breathing, etc. Right? And we think of meditation just within that limited context. But the truth of it is that meditation can be a lot of different things, and it can look a lot of different ways. There's all kinds of meditation. There's active meditation, which would be something more like maybe yoga or Tai Chi. There is, Kundalini meditation, which really harnesses your life force, your life energy, your chi, depending on where you are in the world, your chi, life energy. There are all kinds of, there's also the more traditional type of meditation, the one you see, more often in movies, which is someone sitting, again, as I said before, with their legs crossed and the hands in a particular position. But the truth is that there's, I don't know how many, but there's tens if not hundreds of different types of meditation that you can use. And my biggest roadblock was the fact that what I was doing wasn't looking or feeling like I thought it should look and feel, or like what I saw represented out there in the media, in books, etc. So for me, what I find and what I found for myself, and what I want to share with you that is really important, is to have no judgment, about your own process and your own practice. So remember that you're trying to better yourself, right? You're trying to do something to improve your life that is going to help you, that is going to make your life better. So that deserves praise, not judgment. So if you get nothing else from this few minutes, what I would like you to remember is that there is really no right or wrong way to meditate. There's only what works for you. And that could look like any number of different things, okay? The second key to meditation, or the second thing that I found that was a key to meditation for me, was the fact that I needed to let go of the idea of clearing my mind. To me, what I realized is that meditation is not about having a clear mind or ridding yourself of all thought. I actually don't even personally believe that that's possible. I think we're humans and our brains work in very weird ways. So I don't necessarily think that that's possible, maybe for Buddha or maybe other people, but it certainly doesn't seem like it works for me. What I think is important is to remember to continue to refocus your attention on your meditation, right? It's not about controlling your thoughts or getting rid of the thoughts. It's about observing the thoughts. It's sort of like removing yourself and detaching yourself a little bit from the thought that you're having at that particular point in time, and sort of observing it more with like a sense of curiosity, right? And I'm going to get into a couple of tips that I can use to do that, to detach from your thoughts. But that's basically the two main things that I found that were really, really helpful to me in starting my meditation practice. So now on to some of the things that I found, some of the tips that I can share with you that I found really helpful. And the first thing that I will say is to try and find a comfortable position. This was one of the biggest things that I got hung up on, because everything that I read or all the videos that I saw said that you had to do meditation from a sitting position, because for many reasons, but especially so that you wouldn't fall asleep. I have all kinds of back problems. I'm hyperextended, so I'm always uncomfortable. My joints are always out of alignment. So sitting for extended periods of time is really not great for me. I get very uncomfortable. I get very angsty. I start moving. So actually that was taking away from the meditation, because about 30 to 60 seconds in, I was already shifting and uncomfortable, and then all of my attention and all of my focus would go into how uncomfortable I felt or my position, rather than on the idea of awareness and observing my thoughts. So what I found is, honestly, find whatever position is comfortable for you and you can sustain for several minutes at a time. For example, for me, what I chose to do is I actually do meditate lying down. Or laying down. What I do is I do it on my bed, and I lay down and I prop my back up with a couple of pillows so that I'm not actually all the way flat in a sleeping position. So that actually helps me stay a little bit more alert. And then the truth is that maybe sometimes you're gonna fall asleep, and that's okay. What we're trying to do here is, just build momentum, build a practice. So just try a couple different positions and see what works for you. Another thing that I use that actually was really helpful to me is, that I suggest that you do, is if you're struggling with starting the meditation practice, try with really short, like 5 to 10 minute long guided meditations. A guided meditation is when you're listening to a recording or to someone guiding you through the process, right? So they're giving you instructions. They're telling you to close your eyes, to breathe a certain way, to relax certain parts of your body, and all you do is just listen and follow. And I actually think that's really helpful, because especially when you're a beginner or are struggling, because it actually helps you focus on something, which is on the person's voice and on your body itself. It makes it a lot easier because you don't have to worry about, continuously rerouting your brain or thinking, oh, what do I do next, etc. You just sit or whatever are in the position that you prefer, and just follow and just become aware of your own body and your own mind. The other thing that I would also suggest, that I also think is very important, is breathing. A lot of people will tell you that breathing is the most important thing. For me, like I said before, the two keys are really lack of judgment and letting go of the idea that you have to clear or control your mind. But I think breathing is really, really important. And especially when we talk about diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. I'm going to put a couple links in the description so that you guys can go to some other videos and some other literature that can help you or show you how to do that. I would show you here, but I'm trying to keep this videos really short, so we're around 10 minutes long. So I will put some links in the description that will be helpful. But belly breathing is where you actually are inhaling all the way into your belly and exhaling from there. And it's actually really good for relaxing, but it's also very important that you remember not to force it, not to force belly breathing. So again, I'll put some links in the description and you can follow along. So the next tip I have for you is something that we touched on a couple of minutes ago, which is this idea of detaching from your thoughts, right? So one of the things that most of us struggle with, myself included, is when you are in the middle of a meditation. This happens to me to this day fairly frequently, more frequently than I like to admit, right? I may be into about 10 minutes into a meditation, and all of a sudden I get hungry and I start thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. Do I want to have pizza? Do I want to order pasta, or do I want to cook, etc., right? That's pretty normal. That's actually completely normal, and it will have to happen often enough. But the idea is, as we were talking earlier, right, when these things happen, what you want to do is, as soon as you become aware that your focus has shifted into something else, in this case into pizza or whatever it is that I'm thinking of having for dinner, what you want to do is, as soon as you become aware of that, is you want to refocus back into your meditation. And one of the things, like I said, that we touched on was detaching from your thoughts. And there's different ways you can do that, but one way that I found very helpful for me was this idea of thinking of your thoughts as something separate from you. Or viewing, I should say, viewing your thoughts as something that is separate from you. You know, there's that quote from Shakespeare, "I think, therefore I am," right? And that can be true to some degree, but a lot of people interpret that to mean that we are the same thing as our thoughts, and we're not. Our thoughts are a part of us, but they are not us, and we are not one. So one of the tricks that I use that I found to be really helpful is when I'm getting distracted in my meditation, and to use the example from a second ago or a few seconds ago of me meditating and then all of a sudden thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner, one of the things that is really helpful is, as soon as you realize that you lost your focus, or that your focus went to something else, you can say to yourself, "I am now thinking about blank." So for example, "I am now thinking about dinner," or "I am now thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner." And what that does is it allows you to separate yourself from the thought, and it allows you to puts you into a perspective of observing the thought, right? So I, myself, am now thinking, so I am thinking about food. So I found that out to be actually a really, really helpful trick, and it makes it easier for me to refocus into my meditation. And we can do the same thing with feelings as well. Sometimes you're meditating and certain feelings can bubble up, right? So we want to allow them. We don't want to force them out. We don't want to force feelings or thoughts out. We don't want to push them away, because the more you try to push them away, the more your focus goes into them, right? So we can think about it. This is kind of hard to conceptualize, but what I'm trying to say is, if you are in the middle of a meditation and you have a thought like, "I'm hungry," and you start focusing on, "Oh God, I shouldn't be thinking about hunger. I'm in the middle of a meditation. I need to clear my head. I don't want to think about that." Now your attention is actually on that thought, right? And that's what we want to try to avoid. So that's a very helpful trick. Just go into immediately, just say to yourself, "I am now thinking about blank." And then that gives you sort of a pause and allows you to refocus back into the meditation. Another thing that I found really helpful was to start meditating only like 5 or 10 minutes a day, not even every day. I was actually only doing it on weekends, because I'm not really a morning person, so it was really hard for me to try to meditate in the morning, like wake up and then meditate in the morning and then head on over to work, etc. So what I started doing was I would meditate on weekends, because those days I had a little bit more leg room there. I would wake up in the morning. I didn't have to rush to get dressed and go to work. So I would just meditate for about 5 minutes at a time. And then I started increasing the frequency and the length of each meditation gradually. I just remember, what we're trying to do here is to build a practice, to create a habit. And the easiest way to do that is to incorporate that into your life in a way that is more seamless and is not too inconvenient for you. Another tip that I learned along the way, and I don't remember where I got it from, but it's definitely from either a book or a video. Unfortunately, I don't remember, so I can reference it here. But it was something really helpful, and it was to try and meditate as close to wake up time as possible. And the reason for that is because your brain still hasn't gone through all of the worries and the troubles of your day. So it's easier to maintain your focus on the meditation. Basically, your mind is a little bit more clear and refreshed from the overnight, so it becomes easier to sustain the meditation itself with less distractions. A couple other things that are more practical that I would suggest, that I think most people know, but I will, be remiss if I don't say them here, are things like, for example, try a bunch of different things. If you can try meditating with music. There's things called binaural beats, which are like brain waves that you can use. There's recordings on YouTube all over the place, so you can find those. Use music, use incense, meditate outside. For me, for example, meditating near the ocean is actually really, really helpful because the sound and the smell of the water, of the ocean waves, is actually very soothing for me. So meditating under those conditions are actually really helpful. So just find what works for you. There's a lot of things. A lot of people like to use incense, things for smell, like I said, music, comfortable clothing, comfortable positions, all those kinds of things. So just try a variety of different things and see what works for you. Along those same lines as well, there are, like I said at the beginning, there are all kinds of different meditations. For example, yoga is a type of meditation, and a lot of people don't necessarily associate that because people consider it an exercise, but it is actually a form of, originally it is intended as a form of meditation. And things like yoga, tai chi, qigong, etc., which are meditations where you're moving your body, can actually also be very helpful, especially for people with ADHD or people who are very active, because it makes you focus not just your mind and your breathing, but also your body. So they actually can be super, super helpful for a lot of people. And the last thing that I want to say, which I think is super, super important, is to really try to have some love, patience, and compassion for yourself. We tend to forget that. We spend a lot of our lives trying to be compassionate towards others, and we tend to forget to extend the same to ourselves. And like I said at the beginning, you're trying to do better for yourself. You're trying to improve your life, and that is something that really should be praised. And so focus on that and just let the process unfold as it does, right? It's not going to be perfect. It may take time. I've been doing this for years, and sometimes I have weeks still that is very hard for me to meditate. So just understand that that's part of the process, part of being human, and just keep trying. I hope that all of this was helpful to you. Let me know in the comments if there's any other tips or suggestions that you have that have worked for you that you want to share with others, or if there's any questions. As always, thank you so much for joining. Namaste.